What's up, guys? This is Adam from eSports7.com, and I am here with someone that's actually very special, an unconventional person that I'm interviewing here. Please introduce yourself to, I guess, the esports fans worldwide.
All right, my name's Dr. Kate McGee. I'm a physical therapist, and I'm here working on ergonomics and injury prevention with Smash players.
Okay, so there's a lot of things that we got to get into, but I think the first question is, how did you end up here? We very rarely see you at Smash events, or in terms of anyone in your profession that actually does this on the side, and even more so in the wider world of esports. There are very, very few. I can only think of one off the top of my head, and his name is Martin. He does dream hacks and stuff, but how did you get involved?
So it started out, I have a friend who had some really severe carpal tunnel issues, and I started working with him on those hand issues he was having. After that, I kind of started working with more players in that particular scene. It was Dota specifically. And then as I was following the Dota scene, I was realizing that the CSGO scene needed help. And then G3 this year, I was watching lots of Smash, and I tweeted at Milk Tea, Lil Chen, and I was making an ergonomics guide, and I just asked, do you think there'd be interest? Do you think people would want to see this? And she said, yeah, absolutely. So I posted that on Twitter. Nintendo happened to see it. I got in touch with him because this is kind of my stomping grounds, and he was hosting a tournament here. Contacted him, asked if they wanted an on-site PT, and now here I am.
So now when you say that, you must be are you coming to these events? Okay, you have to be, I would think, a fan of esports. Are you a fan? How much of a fan are you? Are there specific games that you like maybe over the other ones, things of that nature?
So I readily admit, when it comes to Smash, I am a horrible button masher, and you should never pick me for your doubles team ever. When it comes to what I'm actually halfway decent at, I play Dota. I'm a support for that. I love that scene. I love following CSGO. MLG has been great to watch these past few days. I'm also a fan of Street Fighter. Played Street Fighter 4, now getting into Street Fighter 5. I unfortunately had to give up my Chun-Li and switch to a Cammy main for that, because Chun-Li is no longer spammable legs anymore. But those are probably my primary scenes right now.
Okay, now as we did mention, Martin is, I guess, the forefront, like the pioneer of this sort of work. Were you inspired by him, or did you only find out about him after you started getting involved in the scene?
I actually found out about him after I started getting involved in the scene, and I would love a chance to chat with him about the work that he does, kind of network a little bit, and kind of just exchange ideas about what works best for different players. Yeah,
it's definitely a problem. I almost feel like we should have someone like you or Martin at every single one of these events just to help out the players, especially once you get to the higher levels. We should start treating the players like they do at other sporting events. But that being said, you've interacted with people in the console space, so you have people playing with GameCube controllers, and as you said, you have people with fight sticks, and then on the PC side, you have mouse and keyboard. And to my knowledge, Martin has not dealt with much console stuff. So when you get all these different types of people, these, I guess, patients, if you want to call them, coming to you for pain relief, advice, things like that, what are the key differences between each game in terms of the problems that you see?
So when it comes to keyboard, a lot of it has to do with a good ergonomic setup in the first place, making sure that your chair is properly supportive, that your desk is adjusted, your monitor's at a good height, things like that. Any scene you play with, obviously, there's going to be the risk of overuse and not taking enough breaks. That's kind of a commonality between all scenes. When it comes to switching over to the console and controller and fight stick side of things, it varies a little bit more. You'll see different grips on a fighting stick. You'll see people holding their controller with different amounts of tension, with different wrist positions, different things like that. So it really is, the most important thing is to look at the player as an individual and not just as the game you play. Although hilariously with Smash, you can start to tell the difference between who's most likely to have what injuries based on who they main.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing that you can tell about Smash. Now, I don't really want to go too in depth about the nature of the injuries, because obviously you don't want to, like, the terminologies kind of fly over people's heads. And Martin himself has already talked about the PC space. But if you can talk a little bit about the types of injuries that you see with Smashers and with console players, and just like what happens, because as I recall, just for an example, Martin was telling about how the nerve when you're using your mouse hand, it's just constantly twitching and interacting with each other. So maybe just explain the nature of these injuries in the most layman terms possible.
So a lot of these are what we'd call repetitive stress injuries, which, it's a repeated stress on the exact same spot. A lot of times with smashers, you'll see that kind of in the base of the thumb where there's this big chunk of muscle right here. You'll also see a lot of tension up into the forearm where you're gripping and holding things, because this is where your extensors are located, the things that extend your wrist and extend your fingers. So of course, if you're holding a protracted position for a long period of time, you're going to end up with a lot of tension there. Other than that, it's a little varied between mains as far as who's moving their thumbs most in what way. But overall, it's mostly muscle tension with the occasional nerve involvement of, the carpal tunnel right here, which everybody knows about carpal tunnel syndrome. Its little known cousin, there's Guillen's canal right next to it, which is kind of where a different nerve runs. And both of those are small, tight spaces, easy to inflame, easy to get compression on the nerve in. Overall, most injuries, though, are muscular tension related.
Okay, so let's. We're gonna try and do this with with microphone in one of my hands. So let's say I'm a smasher, okay, and you want to teach me how to, I guess, play properly in a sense. What am I doing here?
All right, so it all starts from your core. You want to make sure that you're in a good supported position. And I recognize games get hype, you lean forward, you're close to the screen as possibly as you can, right? But whenever possible, you want to be leaning back in your chair, using that backrest for the good support so that you can keep your shoulders, elbows, wrists, and hands in a good supported position. That's how you lean back. Yeah. Once you've got that, you want to make sure that your hands are kind of supported in your lap. You want to make sure that you're resting on something, that you're not having to hold yourself tighten up in the air. That allows you to relax your hands a lot more, rather than, do the death grip on the controller. And then from there, it's really about making sure that your hands are relaxed enough and that you're never depressing the buttons too hard. And of course, you're going to smash at some point. Everybody button mashes at some point. But for the most part, you want to keep your gameplay as relaxed as possible so that you're never overstressing or over-tightening your hands.
Now, is there any significant difference between using the controller and, say, for the arcade stick? Is it still the same of stand up straight, have it on your lap, and kind of relax?
Same thing applies. Still want to lean back, have that good core support, and make sure your arms are supported throughout.
Now, as we said, there's only 2 people, at least that I know of, that are kind of in this field. Do you think that this is a growing field, especially with esports getting bigger? Like, do you do this a lot? Is this like something that maybe you could see yourself doing full time in terms of going to events, or do you think that this is something that might take a lot longer in order to develop?
So the esports scene has really been growing so much. It's been getting a lot more mainstream attention recently. Several PTs that I've worked with who are hand specialists have actually started getting patients who are gamers and have come to different members of the community for advice. So I definitely think that there's going to be an increased awareness on the part of players that they need to protect their livelihood, protect their hands and their arms and their backs. And as that happens, there's going to be an increased awareness on the part of the medical field of what can we do to address this. Because the regular standard advice of just go rest is never going to fly with this scene. Even if that is the best advice you can give, it isn't necessarily the advice that will work. So it's about finding ways for the communities to work together. And as we get more PTs, occupational therapists, hand specialists involved in the scene, I think we're going to see more of that awareness perpetuating in the Smasher side of things.
Yeah. Basically, what I want to ask you here, so. There are always more and more PTs, obviously. Do you see this as I'm going to PT school specifically to help with esports kind of thing? Because people will say, I want to work with professional sports, or, I just want to work at an outpatient clinic, this and that. Do you feel like this is something that you're going to see more and more people go to school for specifically for this?
So the thing about PT school is a lot of people go in saying, oh my God, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this one thing and this one thing only. And the really funny thing is the vast majority of them come out and do something completely and totally different. That being said, if somebody gets involved in PT because they have a passion for the gaming community, because they recognize a need and they recognize the opportunity to fill it, I'd absolutely welcome that. And I think that would give you a good focus and a good drive and the ability to kind of focus your studies and understand, at some point in the future, I'm going to want to focus on getting my hand certification or getting certified as an ergonomic consultant. And it gives you a bit more motivation and a bit more of a direct focus. That being said, if you're going to be a PT, you still have to have an awareness of the full body and how it all works together.
Sure, for sure. Okay, so let's say I'm a player of any sport for that matter, and I've played a lot, and it's too late for me because I didn't do the stuff in the beginning to ensure I don't get injured, but I am injured now. Besides going to, obviously, and seeking a professional help, which is what everyone should probably do, what can I do on my own? What tips can you give me so that I can relieve the pain, reverse the cycle, if you will?
The problem is it's really specific to every player. The worst phrase I hated to hear in PT school, and the worst phrase I have to give out now is "it depends." It depends on the player, it depends on the specific injury, and really the best way to address it is you do have to go to a professional who can analyze what's going on with you, who knows what they're doing, and can help you find the right treatment protocol to address it.
Right. Now, we've talked about the events hiring, but do you think you'll see more professional teams maybe have like a team physical therapist or things like that? Is that something that is going to become more common? Or do you think that they might go prioritize something else? Like, let's say, oh, we want to get an actual sports psychologist or a coach instead. Where do you see the priority of having a sports physical therapist in the line of everything else that a professional sports team would have, but that a professional esports team is kind of trying to aspire to?
So we actually have already seen some teams picking up physical therapists. CLG, for example, already has one. PPU tweeted about that really recently. I think as the esports scene has continued to grow, we're now at the point where some of the kind of like the pioneers of the scene are getting a little older, at least in esports terms, you know, above 25 essentially. Yeah. So they're now at the point where they're no longer made of rubber, where their hands don't respond or recover as quickly as they used to. So to extend their lifespan and for the teams to extend their lifespan, they need to start focusing on having a PT on staff. And I think we're going to start to see that being prioritized by teams more. We've already seen it from CLG. We've already seen DreamHack supporting that on a tournament-wide basis. And I think we'll definitely start to see that from teams as they're realizing, here's how we make sure that we get the most out of our players.
That's interesting. As I said, this is all getting bigger. This is something that's necessary. This is part of the evolution of esports. Do you see a lot of other physical therapists kind of noticing, I guess, the job opportunity maybe, or seeing the potential of what this is, things like that? Because right now, esports, as much as we want to say that it's big, it is a bit niche. So how do you feel like it's shaping up in the field in general? Is it on the radar of the general physical therapy populace?
I'm not really sure that I can speak to that quite as much. I can tell you among the physical therapists I went to school with, it's less on their radar. However, among hand specialists, it's a lot more of a thing that they're seeing in their practice on a regular basis. So I think students who are coming up in that vein, especially through occupational therapy, have more of an awareness of this is a scene that has a need that we can fill. But it may be less so in the general physical therapy population unless you have that hand specialty.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, we talk about sitting right. We talked about having our positions of our hands, things like that, resting, of course. But being a competitor and staying healthy is a lot more than that. I know that Martin mentioned in his video, which I'll probably link in the description because it's really helpful, having a proper diet, having regular exercise. Is there anything specific that you might recommend to these esports players in general, given what their career is?
So if you are just starting out trying to get into exercise of some sort, trying to make yourself more active and more healthy as like a baseline level, start out simple. You don't have to go start doing CrossFit. You don't have to go join a gym. Start out simple with either walking or running for a little while every day. Half an hour is going to be your goal to get your heart rate up. Body weight exercise is a great way to go if you don't necessarily have the money to join a gym. There are plenty of good guides out there, good places to start. You want to make sure that if you have pain or if you have issues, you always want to see a doctor first before you start any kind of exercise program, especially if it's new to you, if it's something that you haven't been doing previously. But in terms of what's going to allow you the best ability to recover as a player from, a tournament weekend, for example, having that baseline of a healthy body with, a relatively regular diet, a relatively regular amount of activity and a relatively regular amount of sleep, that's the baseline that you need in order to promote healthy recovery throughout your body. And that's not to say that you have to eat like only all leafy green vegetables or run, 5 hours a day or anything. It's just making sure that you're consistently engaging your entire body in activity and then supporting your body with the fuel that you need.
I'm not quite sure as to the validity of the statement, but I've heard before that being, you're using your hands a lot and like that you're, I guess, putting, as you said, lots of stress on it. You probably wouldn't want to do, like for exercise, something that also places those same stresses. So let's say, you were gaming all day. It might not be the best idea to go to the rock climbing gym after, where you're putting even more stress on your hands. So would you recommend and say like it's better to do like just cardio where you're not putting as much stress on your hands, give your hands that kind of break, or compared to like say martial arts where you're like punching someone, you know what I mean?
So it is actually important to make sure that you do have strong arms throughout. So it's not a bad thing to be exercising your arms as well. That being said, if you go and you play for 5 hours straight and then you go to rock climbing gym, that's probably a really bad idea. So it's finding that balance, because it's more important with exercise to find something that you genuinely enjoy doing, that you will continue to do, that you are motivated to do. And if that thing is rock climbing, that's awesome. You just want to make sure you find that balance of never overdoing it. And that may mean that you have to consult with a personal trainer or a physical therapist. That may mean that you have to spend more time with stretching and with heating and with icing your hands. Or that may mean that you need to find kind of an alternate cross-training method, so that rock climbing isn't the only thing that you do for yourself. There's nothing inherently wrong with weightlifting, with cross-training, with rock climbing, with martial arts. It's all about finding the balance of what works for you as a person and as a player, so that the stresses you're applying to your hands and to your arms and to your back and to your entire body are kind of balanced out, and you're never overwhelming your body with only one repetitive stress and nothing other than that.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that's really good for some people listening out there. Now, shifting the focus a little bit to you, as you said, you come to these events for the weekends and things like that, but you do have a regular job, right? Do you see yourself, like, if it gets big enough, you're just gonna do this full time, or do you love your regular job, your normal job so much that you're not gonna leave it? Obviously, they're both physical therapy, but do you feel like you could leave the world that you have now for this world?
Really tough to say, given what's going on right now in the scene. Right now, it's a perfectly fine balance, to do my 9 to 5 during the week, and then on weekends come to tournaments. And that may change in the future, but it's a little too hard to predict right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I hear you. This is as much as we love this industry and it is growing, it's still unstable. It's still hard to really know. No one actually can forecast this place that well. Are there any other general health tips? Given my lack of medical knowledge, I can't really ask you very specific questions, even though I am in school for this. I promise I'll get there. But I'm sure that there are other things that we miss, like training your mind, training other things in general.
Honestly, the biggest piece of advice I can give to anybody who wants to make sure that they're keeping themselves healthy is to have an awareness of your body. Have that awareness while you're playing of what's going on with your posture. Are your shoulders coming up towards your ears? Are you hunching forward? Are you overstressing something? Is something really tight? To have that awareness of your body throughout the day. Have I gotten up and moved around? Have I been getting my activity? Have I been giving my body the fuel that it needs? That awareness is what allows you as a player as a player and as a person to address an injury or an issue before it gets so bad that you're in dire straits and you need a lot more help to recover. It's always better to catch things early or to have preventive care than it is to end up with an injury and then have to recover from the injury afterwards.
It's always better to prevent than to react. Now, normally this is the time where I'd say, do you have any shout-outs, or how can your fans follow you, words for your fans? I'm not quite sure how that applies, though I'm sure you do have some fans out there. I think the better question is, where can people go to find out more about this? Where can they get more help, things like that, without having to worry about, I don't know if there's a stigma, but maybe health insurance or whatever. How can people find out more, and how can they improve themselves, just the information in general?
So if people are looking to ask me questions specifically, I'm available on Twitter at lurkaderp, LURKADERP. You can also do asklurkaderp@gmail.com. I'm always around for questions. Other good resources. Don't go on WebMD, people. It's going to scare you into believing you have cancer. What you want to do is consult with someone who you actually meet in real life, in person. Obviously, an in-person evaluation is best. In terms of resources that are available, there are stretching guides online. I've posted one as well. Martin's videos are great. Team Liquid has a sandbox ergonomicist who's posted some videos on the Team Liquid wiki. And also Dr. Levi's videos on YouTube are good for a very basic, very general stretching guide. But as always, anytime you're going to start anything, make sure you talk to someone in person. Yeah,
actually, before we go, I just remembered something I wanted to ask you. Is there any specific equipment that you recommend players buy? Because I know, having had physical therapy before, there's obviously you get ice packs, you get heat packs, you get certain ointments or whatever, certain treatments. So is there anything that you can recommend people get so that they have it at home to help out with things?
So it's really tough to say without evaluating any specific injury. However, if I had to guess one thing that most people could probably benefit from, even if they don't play all that much, get a tennis ball. You can use a tennis ball to roll out tight muscles in the palm of your hand. You can get a tennis ball to roll out your forearms. You can get a tennis ball, put it behind your back, lean against the wall, and roll out tight shoulders. And you do have to be careful with it. You have to be aware that you're not pushing down so hard that you give yourself bruises. But if there's one thing you have to pick up because you really need some help stretching things out, tennis ball is probably not a bad way to go.
Yes, I remember doing that during cross country. Well, there you have it, guys. Stay tuned to esportsheaven.com for more coverage of Pound 2016, and please follow what she says, follow what Martin says. Keep yourself healthy. I'm actually being very serious right now. This is very important. It's better to prevent than to react to an injury. Okay, please, just listen, please. It's your body. This actually helps you. Okay. All right, guys. Stay tuned.